Joining us now is Congressman from the 1st District Republican, Rob Wittman. He is the ranking member of the subcommittee on sea power readiness, and he's right in the middle of everything. Congressman Wittman, great to have you with us, sir.
John, it's great to be back with you this morning.
Congressman, a couple of things. Let's get right to it. Let's start with the president putting another 10% tariff on China. Now, everything now coming out of China is now tariffed, right? 100%, some at 25 and some at 10. And here's the president's position. He said, China's been screwing us for 40 years. Nobody will hold them accountable. I sent over my people in good faith to negotiate. They came back and said basically whatever we had agreed to, they've already reneged on that like they've been doing for 40 years. And now they're going to wait my presidency out and hope Biden wins. And so I'm going to slap another tariff on them. Have a nice day. Try to bring it back to the table. What say you?
I think the president is negotiating the way the United States should negotiate with China, and that's from a position of strength, not capitulating to China. That's been the policy for the United States for the past, 50 plus years. It doesn't work. China takes absolute advantage of our weak policy in the past. I think we have to be strong and forceful with them. China is not our friend. They are ruthless and relentless. Their single focus is to defeat us economically and strategically. The only way that we actually will get a deal that is fair to the United States is to stand strong against China. We see the things that they do. We see what they do in intellectual property theft. We see what they do in companies that go to China requiring that they hand over their intellectual property, and then their products, their technology shows up being produced by China. They are not doing the things that you would see a equal and willing partner do in a fair trade relationship. Therefore, John, we have to stand strong. That's the only way that you're going to get Xi Jinping to come to the table, and the only way that you're going to get a meaningful deal that has teeth in it, that requires that China do the things that they need to do in order to make sure that there's a fair relationship with the United States. And if they don't, then I think the president's doing exactly the right thing. Stand strong, make sure that China knows that there is a consequence to not entering into a deal with the United States, and do not capitulate.
Congressman Wittman, how do you answer critics that are saying now today that all this means is that it's a tax on American consumers paying higher amounts for goods that are coming from China due to the tariff? How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, if you look at what China does to manipulate currency, I would argue that currency has as much to do with what happens with the cost of products that come from China. So I think what's happening is a lot of this is being buffered in what's actually happened with the world currency rate. As far as it being a tax that is passed on, China's going to have a simple decision to make. Do they continue to import, and if they do, these are the conditions under which they're going to have to operate. If not, other people will move into the marketplace and provide those things that China does not provide. I think competition is a good thing. I know that folks say, well, initially there will be an impact. I think markets have a pretty efficient way of going about seeking where dollars are most efficiently going, especially when people make decisions on spending, especially when they make decisions on where to receive either the goods and services or the raw materials. And China's going to have to realize that. And the good thing is that opens up opportunities for others in this realm. So I think that there's a lot of things that will happen, John, that will actually be, in the long term, more beneficial for the United States economically.
You're right. And all of the naysayers and the Wall Street propaganda machine for Goldman Sachs and the other bankers, gangster banksters up there yelling about it's the end of the world. We can't sell soybeans and everything is going to collapse. Here's the bottom line: inflation is virtually nil since he's done these tariffs, and the reason it has no impact is because what people don't realize is the Chinese just further subsidize the cost of production because they want to dump the goods in the United States. So, and they have to keep their job farms going because every 12 months they have another 4 million young people coming into the job market. So if they can't provide jobs for them, they put their whole government and their totalitarian communist system at risk because we'll have Tiananmen Square times the power of 3. So they're completely handcuffed. They subsidize the material, and the president is absolutely correct here, in my judgment, of what he's doing, because that's the only way he's going to get him to the table. We have a $500 billion trading deficit with the Chinese. That's $500 billion of our money going their way, more than comes to us. So the president holds all the cards, and he knows that. And hopefully he's going to bring them to the table. John Fredericks Radio Network, we're with Dr. Rob Wittman, Congressman, 1st District in Virginia. That's the Central Virginia area, the Fredericksburg area, up through the neck. And let me ask you this, Congressman. You sent a letter out the other day that I want to talk about, and you were very upset because there was a prescription drug bill that would have actually helped consumers pay less for prescriptions that came out of committee, and you're claiming that the Democrats squashed it in order to not give the president and Republicans share in a victory that is going to help U.S. consumers buying prescription drugs. And you're saying that the Democrats squashed the bill so that they could make it a campaign issue. Can you elaborate on that? Is that true?
Sure, John. There was a great bill that came out, bipartisan bill. It was actually worked on in the previous Congress that would push down prescription drug costs, which is what I think everybody agrees needs to be done. That bill came through committee. It was a bipartisan bill, great ideas from both sides. That bill should come to the House floor. It will not, at least currently it will not. And instead of looking at what is best for our nation, what is best for our citizens, unfortunately, this is now a game of what can we do to play the political game? What can we do to keep somebody from saying that, hey, we've done something good? And in this situation, John, it's a situation where we can do something very good for the American people. We can reduce their prescription drug cost. That's good for everybody. And both sides can take credit. But now it's become a metric to say, oh my goodness, we don't want anything to be used by Republicans or the president to say that they've actually gotten something done. On the converse side, what that also shows is that the majority doesn't want to get things done. They want to make everything about politics and not about policy. And that's what I've been driving at, is that, you know, our job as legislators is to have the discussions about policy, to get the policy right, and then to put those things into place. Listen, politics are part of this process, but it shouldn't be the only thing that happens. And unfortunately, what I see happening now is things are 100% political. It's not about, are we doing the right thing? Are we developing and debating good public policy? It's about, you know, what's the political outcome of this effort? And when that happens, what you end up with is either legislation that doesn't make its way through because somebody's worried about somebody getting the credit, or legislation that comes through without any opportunity for the minority to get their ideas either debated or into the bill to make it really a bipartisan bill. So that's what concerns me and how the process is taking place. And this prescription drug bill is the example about how you should do things in a bipartisan way, where you have a bipartisan bill that should be allowed to come to the floor to be voted on, yet it will not because of the politics of what is driving Washington.
I mean, have you talked to your colleagues about this? I mean, are they serious that they would kill a bill that they would kill a bill that is bipartisan, that would help consumers pay less money for prescription drugs, that they would just kill it because they want it as a campaign issue going into 2020, or they don't want to give the president or the Republicans a share in a victory on this? I mean, when you look them in the eye and ask one of your sane, I don't mean the squad, sane colleagues on the other side of the aisle that you talk to, and I know you have a lot of bipartisan friends in there. I mean, when you look them in the eye and ask them that question, Congressman, what do they tell you?
John, many of them do want a bill like this prescription drug bill to come to the floor, to be debated and to be voted on. Yet the members of the majority party there, should be pushing the Speaker. The Speaker is the ultimate determiner about what comes to the House floor. The Speaker and the Majority Leader. They're the ultimate determiners there. And ultimately, the membership of the majority can go to the Speaker and to the Majority Leader and say, we want this bill to come to the floor. You shouldn't have to go to a process called a discharge petition, where you actually petition that a bill come to the floor. It takes 218 members to do that. You shouldn't have to do that because this bill is so fundamental to doing the right thing. You shouldn't have to go through that formal process. I do believe that there are folks on the other side of the aisle that absolutely want this bill to come to the floor, but it's up to them as members of their party to go to their leadership and say, bring this bill to the floor. Now, as I said, there's a formal way to do that, but I believe that members there should go to the Speaker or the Majority Leader and tell both Speaker Pelosi, Majority Leader Hoyer, bring this bill to the floor.
It's a sick situation when you've got legislation that is going to benefit all Americans that is bottled up by leadership of one party because they don't want to give their president or the other party partial victory when the victory is not about a party. The victory is about helping everyday Americans trying to afford prescription drugs. I mean, it's a sick system that we've got going on right now. And I know you've written letters to the speakers, two of them at least, asking for her to meet with you and talking about keeping people in session until you get all the budgetary issues solved. You know, she wouldn't even respond to you. I mean, you've been there. You've been there. What? I mean, you were a committee chair. Now you're a ranking member. You've been there a long time. You have seniority. You write to Speaker. They blow you off. I mean, it's that's wonder why we can't get anything done, right?
Well, it's frustrating, John. You know, listen, I understand that there are politics involved in what we do, but that can't be 100% of what we do. It's got to be about getting the work done for the American people. And I can tell you, as I talk to folks across my district, they are tremendously frustrated that they feel like everything is political. And I share that frustration with them because there are things that have to be done. These are simple, straightforward things that are plainly bipartisan, that plainly both sides can take credit for. So if the majority decides they're not going to do anything because they're afraid that somebody's going to claim a political victory, then I would argue that they're not doing what's in the best interest of the American people. And I think the American people will gauge every member of Congress as to, you know, what are you doing to make life better for folks that you represent? And that, I think, is our job each and every day. And it's got to be a job that is taken seriously by both sides of the aisle, not a place where the majority says, no, we're going to play the 100% political game here. That can't be how things happen, because without that want to get things done, things grind to a halt. And yes, we did get a budget deal done. I had a lot of reservations about that. We did get that done, but that's one of the only things. That's one of the only things that has happened this year that is, you know, a major effort that has bipartisan support and that the executive branch approves of.
Can you live with that budget?
John, I voted against it. I think that there are fundamental flaws with the additional debt that it creates, $2 trillion in debt. Listen, it puts more money towards the military this year, but it only puts a 0.2% increase in the military spending next year. We really need to rebuild our readiness. $320 billion additional dollars of spending, much higher rates of increase in spending than what we had in the previous bipartisan budget deal, which I did vote in favor of because there was a $1 increase in defense spending and a $1 increase in non-defense. This was totally out of balance. I have deep concerns about our deficit and debt, and I know some folks said, "Oh, it doesn't make any difference. You know, we can just keep borrowing money." You can't keep borrowing money. Economists will tell you once our debt reaches 100% of GDP, and we're at $22 trillion now, so it's right there, it will have an effect on this economy. And the longer we put this off, the more money that we borrow, the more burden we place on our children. So that really concerns me, and our children and our grandchildren. So, we're spending their money. That to me, it becomes generational theft. We at some point have to say, stop. Let's make this math problem work, and that's what we have is a math problem. You can't continue to spend more than what you bring in. It's great that we have an economy that's growing. It's great that we have tax revenues that are growing, but we're spending faster than the revenue increases we have coming in. Cannot sustain that.
Congressman Rob Wittman, thanks for being with us today.